Welcome to our Year in Review webinar. I'm Diana Wynn, President of the League of Women Voters of Wake County. As many of you know, the original plan was to get together for dinner this evening for our annual meeting at the NC State University Club. As you know, COVID-19 precautions make that impossible at this point. So, in lieu of an annual meeting, we are conducting our elections online and by written ballot, and we're hosting this webinar to share with you how the League is doing. This will also be an opportunity for you to provide us with important feedback. Before we get started, let's just review a few technicalities of how we'll conduct this session using Zoom. See if I can. You've been muted and your video camera should be off. Please keep yourself muted and your camera off. We will have some of our presenters on camera during the session later on. Please use the chat feature to ask questions or make comments. For those of you who are on computer, and if you're unfamiliar with the Zoom, all you need to do to find the chat feature is bring your mouse to the bottom of the screen, sort of the center of the bottom of the screen, and hover around there. And one of the controls in the menu that will pop up will say chat. Click on that, and then you'll have a chance to make comments, answer questions, and see what others are writing in that chat box. Some questions may be answered in the chat box during this session, and others will be answered verbally based on how much time we have after each presenter, but we will have a little bit of time after each of them. Later in this session, we have 3 questions we would like you to answer in order to provide us with feedback. You'll use the chat feature for that. Again, your feedback is very important to us. So let's get started. I will first provide a summary of our year. A detailed annual report should be ready by the end of the month. We're in the middle of preparing that. When you receive that report, I hope you'll take a look at it. Of course, I'm aware of everything we do throughout the year, but it's impressive even to me to see our work summarized in a single document. After my summary, we will then hear from Naomi Lambert, co-chair of our nominating committee, who will tell you more about the League's leadership. Our treasurer, Mary Jane Slipsky, will briefly review the past year's budget, as well as the proposed budget for the next fiscal year. Cheryl Tung, our development director, will talk a little bit about our fundraising efforts this past year. And at the end of each presentation, we should have time to answer a couple questions from the chat box. Sheila Den is monitoring the chat box, and she'll be picking a couple of the questions when we get to that point. Finally, and very importantly, we want feedback from you. At the end of the presentations, we're going to be asking you 3 open-ended questions. I want you to think about what your answers might be, but don't put them into the chat box until we get to that part of the program. Here are the questions I'll be asking you to answer later. First, what are the issues that are most important to you right now? Secondly, what could the League of Women Voters of Wake County do better? And finally, what do you love about your league? Before we review our current year, let's look back 100 years. This is the 100th anniversary of the League of Women Voters. In anticipation of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, Carrie Chapman Catt, president of the National American Suffrage Association, founded the League of Women Voters in February 1920. The suffragists knew that they were soon going to have to get busy registering women to vote, educating them on the political process, and they also wanted to have a nonpartisan voice in American politics. The Raleigh Equal Suffrage League at that time transformed into the League of Women Voters after the 19th Amendment was ratified. And the Raleigh Times newspaper reported on the League's first meeting on September 27, 1920. We have the distinction of being the very first local league in North Carolina, though several others would soon follow. The League of Women Voters of Wake County is now the largest league in the state. So what have we been doing to celebrate our centennial? We are being honored with proclamations from several of our municipalities. We were very excited when the Raleigh City Council declared February 2020 League of Women Voters of Wake County Month. We also received a proclamation from the Wake County Board of Commissioners. Before stay-at-home orders were put in place, we were scheduled to receive proclamations from Garner, Holly Springs, Knightdale, and Wake Forest. Those proclamation presentations will be rescheduled and they'll take place at a later date. We've been working for almost 2 years to plan a series of events in celebration of our 100th anniversary, as well as the centennial of the 19th Amendment. A few of those activities have already happened and more are scheduled for this coming year. In collaboration with the Wake County Libraries, we developed a recommended reading list on women's suffrage, which is on our website right now. We were a co-sponsor of the She Changed the World event, which was the governor's kickoff event on the Capitol grounds to commemorate the 19th Amendment. And we had a display in the lobby of the Apex Town Hall for over a month. We have a number of other events scheduled as part of our 100th anniversary celebration. We are optimistic that many of them will still happen, even if they are postponed to later dates or shifted to other formats. You just need to watch the weekly newsletter and the website as events or any changes are announced. This is a historic year for us because it is our 100th anniversary, but also because it was a very successful year for our league. Here are just a few highlights from this year. Really, it's a very few, and I would encourage you to read that annual report when you receive it in a couple weeks. LWV-Wake's membership grew by 16% this year. We sponsored 16 public events, including 5 candidate forums. We offered our members over 50 members-only events and activities. Our volunteers registered well over 800 voters. We received more media attention than ever this year with 42 instances of earned media. Traffic on our website increased by 147% this year. We published 28 articles on our new blog, The Voter, which I hope that you'll check out. It's on our website. We expanded our social media reach and now have a presence on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We have initiated the process of converting to a 501c3H organization, which will allow us to accept tax-deductible donations. And we moved to larger and nicer office space. Now, while we cannot use it at the moment, it was an important move to better accommodate a larger and busier membership and will be important as we move forward. I'd like to talk a little bit more about our membership. We now have over 414 members. That represents a 171% growth in membership over 5 years. To put that in perspective, our 5-year strategic plan developed in 2017 set a goal of having 400 members by 2022. So we have exceeded that goal by a couple years. And I need to give a shout out to our membership committee for their efforts to recruit, but especially for their work to retain and engage new members. As an all-volunteer organization, we could not accomplish anything without members who volunteer their time and talents. 45% of our members volunteered in some way over the past year. That was about 185 volunteers. Most of our work is done within committees. I'm not going to go over these committees in any detail, but I want you to get a sense of what our volunteers are doing. We currently have 26 committees, and that's not including some of the subcommittees within those. They are working on educating the public or advocating with elected officials on important issues. They're helping manage the organization and doing all the things that are necessary for an organization to operate effectively. And they plan activities that engage the membership and enrich the league experience. And they do all of this as volunteers. So a big thank you to all those who have volunteered for the league. You are the reason we are successful. But I don't want to give the impression that we have plenty of volunteers. We still need more members who will volunteer to help operate the league and to work on our important issues. So if you're interested in volunteering, please let us know. I do want to highlight the work of our Vote 411 team. Vote411.org is the league's online election guide, and it's an important part of our voter services program. During this past primary election, voters visited the website over 20,000 times for Wake County election information. We anticipate an even larger number of voters, of course, using Vote 411 for the upcoming general election. And I have an exciting announcement for those of you who haven't already heard. Earlier this week, Vote 411 was awarded a National Webby Award for Outstanding Websites. Please tell your friends about vote411.org. It really is an excellent resource for voters. It does require a team of volunteers to manage Wake County's portion of the site. So a big shout out to our voter services team for their hard work on this. They do a lot of work every election to get that ready. Finally, I want to talk briefly about the impact of COVID-19 on our league. I know many of our members have been wondering about this as we move forward. I do want to say that to my knowledge, we have not lost a league member to the virus, and I am so thankful for that. And I trust that you are all doing what you can to keep yourself safe. We did have to cancel several large public events and some smaller members-only events. So a couple of those events still continued. They just went to a virtual space. We don't yet know what the implications are for our fundraising efforts or our membership renewals going forward, but I have to tell you that I am optimistic. When this all happened, I was unsure about how we were going to move forward. And I'm really proud of our committees who quickly pivoted to video conferences and conference calling for meetings. And they have continued their important work these past few weeks and months. We've already begun sponsoring webinars via Zoom, and we will be announcing more very soon. Our Women's Equality Day reception will now be a virtual event, and the committee is in the process of planning what that will look like. And I think that it's very exciting. It's not what we had planned, but it is forcing us to do some innovative things. Timely Topics will be online in September, and we are preparing to do Timely Topics online after that until it's safe for in-person events. And of course, we are working on several issues particularly impacted by the pandemic, like concerns with voting, affordable housing, and healthcare. So our work on all the issues continues. In spite of a pandemic, I am optimistic about the upcoming year for the league. With the continued support of our members, LWV-Wake is really well positioned to have a successful year working to fulfill our mission of empowering voters and defending democracy. I would ask you to keep in mind that in 1920, our founding suffragists had recently survived their own pandemic, yet they were persistent in their fight for voting rights. Before we turn to the next presenter, I want to end my remarks by sharing with you the inspiring words of the League's founder, Carrie Chapman Catt. She said, "To the wrongs that need resistance, to the rights that need assistance, to the future in the distance, give yourselves." And I am proud to work with members who are doing just that 100 years after the founding of our League. I hope that gives you a little bit of an overview of how successful a year we have had. And again, I encourage you to read many of the details, especially about the work within all of our committees in the annual report when that comes out. We now have time for a couple questions. So Sheila, if you could take a look at the chat box and let me know if there are any questions that you think I need to answer before we turn to our next speaker, that would be great.
I have not seen any questions as of yet, but I did see some cheer emojis for LWV-Wake. And some bravos again to the Vote 411 team, and some kudos to everyone who pulled this annual review meeting together. And one comment that I marvel at all we accomplish as a united organization. So some nice comments.
Great, and I'm seeing some of those comments. I do see a question about publicizing the Zoom committee meetings. And as Sheila has noted in the chat box, our committee meetings are still on our Google Calendar, which is on our website. If you go to the calendar tab, you'll see an option for meetings, and they're all there. They're just not in the office. They're happening virtually. And we're making sure that we don't double book meetings, because we do have members who serve on more than one committee. So the calendar is really important. We will not put the access information to those in that calendar for security purposes. So if you need to join one of those committees and need to access the meeting, you reach out to the committee chair and they'll help you with that. But you won't actually be able to join without getting that information from the committee chair. And I do appreciate that you all recognize that we had to pivot in a big way from having our traditional annual meeting to having this virtual event. And we spent quite a lot of time and received legal advice, went through our bylaws and Robert's Rules of Orders and the law to determine how we could do our elections, and we're confident that our elections are going very well, and what we could do about the annual meeting. And the answer was to do something virtual in lieu of an annual meeting. I hope that's working for you all. Well, if those are the only questions, why don't we now turn to our next presenter. So Naomi, if you want to put yourself on video if you'd like and unmute yourself. Naomi Lambert is co-chair of the Nominating Committee, and she's going to talk about our nominations to the board.
I'm happy to be unmuted. It appears that the host has to start my video. So, okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm speaking for myself and for Jackie Giordano, who is my wonderful co-chair on the Nominating Committee. For those of you who are new to the League, I'll explain briefly how this process works. The Nominating Committee's job is to ensure that there is a League member who is willing to serve in each existing leadership position, and then to report the names of those members to our chapter's president, Diana. The leadership positions fall into three categories. The first category is the Board of Directors. Board members are elected to 2-year terms. They are responsible for the overall direction of the Wake chapter, including money matters, such as managing the budget and raising funds to support the League's work, maintaining the website, keeping in regular contact with members, and creating a community program that recognizes the needs of Wake County members. Board members have specific responsibilities, such as secretary, treasurer, and voter services. Several board members are also committee chairs as well as board members. For example, Dale Cousins is co-chair of the membership committee. Each year, there are some board members who will be moving into their second year. They're called continuing members. Others need to be re-elected or elected for the first time. Those are elect members. Some of you will already have voted online for the new board members. Those of you who have not can do so after this meeting through May 31st. So looking at the first slide here, these are the continuing board members. They're going into their second year on the board. I'm just going to share a few little pieces of information, but there are much better bios on the website for you to look at. Diana is in her second year as president of our League chapter. She serves as co-chair of the Communications, Redistricting, and 100th Anniversary Committees. She has been a member for 6 years, and her background is as a writer and communications professor. Marion has been a League member for over 20 years. She is our voter services guru, leading forums, voter registration drives, Vote 411 publicity, and other important areas of public policy. She also serves on the League's state board. Jenny is a 5-year member of the League. She is co-chair of the Communications Committee, a writer and editor, and is keenly interested in redistricting. Cheryl leads the League's fundraising, as well as advocacy and socials. She is also very involved in redistricting. And finally, on our continuing board members, Dale has been a member of the League for 4 years. She is co-chair of the membership committee, as well as assisting in voter services, and she is a retired librarian. Diana, if we could have the next slide, please. Next, we have our elect board members. These are the board members you'll be voting for. Sheila has been a member for 4 years, and she has served as secretary to the board for 2 years and will continue this year as vice president. Laurel has been a member for 5 years. She is co-chair of the redistricting committee and will be board secretary starting this year. Laurel has a doctorate in veterinary medicine and is an adjunct professor at Wake Tech. Elaine is also a 4-year member and is co-chair of the ERA committee. She has a background in telecommunications IT, and next year she will be treasurer of our League. Finally, Diane is very active on a number of committees, including the Environment Committee, and she will be a co-chair of Timely Topics in the coming year. As I mentioned, there is lots of information on the website if you'd like to know more, or you could talk to them. The second category that you'll be voting for is the Nominating Committee, who are re-elected every year. And Jackie and I have volunteered to re-up as the Nominating Committee. And then the third category of leadership comprises all the committee co-chairs. Our chapter's membership has grown enormously in the past couple of years, and we now have a large number, as Diana has mentioned, of lively and productive committees. I'm not going to bore you with listing the committees and all the co-chairs. You can find that information in the annual report, and that is the report of the Nominating Committee.
Great. We have a couple minutes for any questions. Sheila, do you spot any questions that would be appropriate to answer at this point?
Yes, so we have a question about whether it is possible for board members to have their board term extended beyond the 2-year term if the nominating committee recommends.
Typically, I mean, that has indeed happened. Typically, that's done by a vote of the board. I believe Diana can correct me if that's wrong.
Yeah, the answer is obviously the board and the nominating committee work together as it goes forward. But a board member may serve multiple terms. So I have served maybe 3 terms now. Marion has served, I don't know how many terms on the board. Same thing for Mary Jane. So currently on the board, we do have some very long-term members who've served on the board for a while, in addition to members who have joined in more recent years. And I think that when Naomi described each board member, you could tell that, some of us only joined maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and now we're on the board, and there are others that only joined maybe 3 years ago, and they're on the board. I hope that answers that person's question.
There's a follow-up. What about officer positions?
By which, does that mean like president, vice president, treasurer, secretary? Would that be classified as officer?
Yes.
And those are what you're voting on every year. So, for instance, Laurel is nominated to be the new incoming secretary, and Elaine the new incoming treasurer. So those officer positions are categorized as board members.
And those officers can also can also be elected for multiple terms. But again, that is up to the vote of the members each year. And we have time for another question if you see anything, Sheila.
I don't see anything else. The person who asked that question has indicated that those answers helped. So I believe we're good to go.
Great. Then why don't we move on to our next speaker? We'll now hear from our treasurer, Mary Jane Slipsky. So Mary Jane, if you want to unmute yourself.
I believe I'm unmuted now.
Right.
Great. Yes, I served 2 terms as treasurer back to back, and of course they ask you if you want to continue, so I was happy to do it. This is the budget report. Part of our bylaws require us to present a budget to the membership at our annual meeting, and just let me talk to a couple of points before we look at numbers. First, I want to thank the budget committee. They gave a lot of time and put in a lot of hard work in our meeting in February. And they were Cheryl Keaton, Laura Velker, and Cheryl Tung. And I want to thank them for their participation in the budget committee. Let me spend a minute to explain the process for developing our budget. We start in February in order to have the budget ready for the board meeting in March. Then we can have it ready for the membership to review in April, a month before our annual meeting in May, per our bylaws. So it's kind of hard to understand that we work so far in advance. As chair of the committee, I reach out to the committee chairs and the board members to ask them to submit their requests for the year 2020 to 2021. This year, the committee met the 3rd week of February. At that time, the budget requests exceeded the potential income by $10,000. So there were hard decisions to make as to how to bring our expenses in line with our income potential. The committee's product was presented to the board on March 9th, where there were some additional adjustments made by the board. And today, this is the budget I'm presenting to the membership. Bear in mind, this budget, excuse me, the membership votes on is a spending plan for the board and the organization to use as a tool to show our financial objectives for the year and how we will fund them. As you're all aware, in the last 2 months, our priorities and ways of conducting business have changed. The board is cognizant of the new challenges ahead, and we may be making adjustments to our budget as needed in the coming year. I hope you've all taken an opportunity to review the budget, and I will go through it just to point out some of the significant changes. Diana, could you advance the slide to budget income? Right. As we go through, the proposed budget will be in the far right hand. I see it's sort of slightly highlighted. The League does not have a reliable income stream. In my dreams and everybody else's, that would be nice. We look to dues and dues collection and donations for our funding, and historically this has been sufficient. As you can see, we carried over some money from our last budget cycle that we did not spend. Yay! And we also factored in the possibility that we may bring in less money in dues and donations in 2020 to 2021. We tried to be a little conservative because not even knowing about COVID-19 and all that, we just did not want to push the envelope too far out. In the next presentation, Cheryl Tung, our development chair, will outline plans for increasing donations. So next screen, Diana, we'll talk a little bit about budget expenses. And this is the big screen, and I'm not going to go through every line in the interest of time. I'm going to point to a couple things. The communication public relation line shows a big increase to $4,000. We saw a need, even in February 2020, that we need to boost our online and virtual presence. For instance, we're paying for MailChimp subscription, which allows us to get out the Monday morning email to our members. And there are other features that Diana uses that for to communicate to our group. We now have a Zoom subscription. We may be considering using some advertising in local media and perhaps even purchasing a video camera. Voter service is a line that I want to draw your attention to. It's going to be an important committee as we go into this election. They will be getting additional funding, not shown here, but we have a grant from the LWV-US that will help fund our voter services. And our Vote 411 payment is being paid for by the state league. So that is the savings for voter services. Our rent, as Diana mentioned, we signed a new lease in January and we had a rent increase. We didn't plan that in our last budget, but we have managed to live within our means and we have been able to afford our new and bigger office, and we will continue to pay that higher rent. Under board expenses, there's a significant increase too, because we are looking into the potential of hiring a bookkeeping service. As Diana showed that tremendous increase in membership, that has put quite a bit of time-consuming bookkeeping on the treasurer. So we're looking at possibly getting some help there. Another board expense we will have this year is the fee we have to pay to the IRS for the conversion to the 501c3. For our newer members, I want to point out toward the very bottom of the screen, it says PMP National and PMP State, and they are $11,000 and $3,000 each. And our new members and some of our other members may not realize what that is for. PMP stands for per member payment. And this is the portion of our dues that you pay in that we in turn send to national and the state leagues as our payment to make you a member on both levels. And you'll see a little bit more about this in Cheryl Tung's presentation. Next screen is our budget assets. We are going into this year on solid financial ground. One change the board made this year was to move money into our savings account to bring it up to $5,000. Even in advance of the economic changes, the board felt like we wanted to have a $5,000 reserve fund in case we did have a drastic income decline. We could still meet some of our ongoing expenses. If you want to see more detailed information on how we spend our money, we have filed documents with the North Carolina Secretary of State and have been approved as for the charitable solicitation license from the state. In closing, I want to commend you, the members of the League, for your generous support of the Wake County League. You've given your time, your money, and your hearts. With this, I bow out as treasurer. It has been my honor to serve in this position since 2016. Now I'm turning the checkbook over to Elaine Oakle as your new treasurer. And I have come to the end. I don't know if it's back to Diana.
Great, thank you, Mary Jane. Sheila, do we have questions for Mary Jane regarding budget or for me?
This question is for you. We had a question as to how much the Zoom subscription is.
That is a good question. That is not something that we budgeted for. It is not something we had before mid-March, but in pivoting to take everything online and allow all of our committees to continue to do their work and be able to offer things like this, we did pay for a Zoom subscription. I spent an hour today trying to figure out what would be the best thing to do in terms of our options. Going forward, it will cost us anywhere, depending on the month and what we choose to do, $65 a month to $140 a month. Or a little over that, actually more like $155 a month. And there are months where we will have to upgrade it in order to allow for more participants in a webinar format. We're not using the webinar format at the moment. So at the moment, the event you're on right now isn't actually within the webinar function, and we will have to do that for timely topics and for our candidate forums. So we're looking at that, and but it's going to be well over $1,000, and it could run closer to about $1,400 over the course of the year. And I see someone asking if WebEx is less expensive, and no, WebEx is more expensive in terms of our options. I did do some looking around to compare things. There are pros and cons to all of them, but Zoom seemed to offer what we needed and was pretty user-friendly, and we're all volunteers, and we needed a platform that would be user-friendly. So I hope that answered that question. Are there any other budget-related questions?
Yes, I've had a question about the income screen. So if we could go back to that for a moment.
Okay, I'm not sure I can, there we are.
Okay, so I had a question as, did the projected income add up to $41,502? One line looked like asterisks to me, so I'm not sure.
I can tell you the asterisks are a line item that we're eliminating as we kind of reorganize the budget. But Mary Jane, you want to speak to any of that?
I'm not sure the question. Yes, the income does add up to 41,502. And as Diana said, we are eliminating that line as we found it was sort of a misleading way of showing that we are withdrawing money that we have at the state league that is in the line before. It's a technicality, so we're moving forward not going to show it in that fashion. Does that answer the question?
So to clarify, what was shown in 2019-2020 as two lines, one on the LWVNC 501c3 and one on the LWVNC withdrawal line. So am I to understand that that means that the proposed 2020-2021, those two lines have been collapsed into the one under LWVNC 501c3?
Yeah, and more to the point is that account, as soon as we get our own 501c3, that account will be closed up and that money will be moved into our general fund, because our whole general fund will become a 501c3.
Okay, okay. This is another question for you, Diana, in regards to these virtual options for meetings. Don't they offer any reduced cost options for nonprofits?
That is a possibility, but what we have found with all vendors like Eventbrite, PayPal, and SurveyMonkey, all of these platforms that we use, when I was signing up for them, while they say they offer a discount for nonprofits, once you get into it, what you discover is most of them, that discount goes for 501c3 organizations. So this is one of the reasons we are making that conversion. And Sheila, at this point, we need to go ahead and move forward to the next item.
That's fine.
Okay. Before we finish with Mary Jane, though, I need to say a few more words. Mary Jane, as she indicated, is leaving our board after many years of service. And I would like to take a moment to express our deepest appreciation to Mary Jane for her dedication to the League. Mary Jane served as president of LWV-Wake from 1999 to 2000. She has served as our treasurer very conscientiously for several years, and she has chaired and served on numerous League committees. Mary Jane, I do have a certificate of appreciation for you that I will get to you at a later date, but on behalf of all of us, thank you for all that you do for the League. And eventually, when we're able to see each other in person, when you run into Mary Jane, please thank her for everything that she does. And of course, we'll continue to see her, and she'll still be involved in the League. We're going to move on to our next and last presenter before we go to your feedback. Our final update is from our Development Director, Cheryl Tung, who will tell us about our fundraising efforts.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Diana. Before I talk about development and fundraising, I wanted to take a moment to shout out a big thank you, and you can advance the slide. These are all of our donors, and I'm giving you a big Morocco shake. Thank you very much for supporting the League. I wanted to thank all that have supported the League this year, and in addition, the 47 donors who participated in our recent Giving Tuesday Now fundraiser, and the many who keep supporting us year after year. We know that we have wonderful supporters who believe in the League's mission and who volunteer not only their time, but also financial resources, and we are very grateful for that. You can advance to the next slide. You may have noticed that we are asking for support for the League more often than we used to. I'd like to spend just a couple of minutes to address why we fundraise and why fundraising is important. You can see the pie in this slide shows how membership dues is divided between the national, state, and our local league, with our league netting around $16 of that membership fee. The dues does not cover all of our expenses. We need to fundraise in order to meet our budget needs. As an example, we've seen our membership grow significantly over the past 4 years. However, as we grow, we've needed a larger space to accommodate our members during meetings. Recognizing we needed to fundraise to grow with our increasing membership led to the creation of my role as Development Director. I'm tasked to create innovative and fun ways to raise needed funds and work to identify potential new donors. This is a new journey for me, And I'm happy now to have fellow Journey women in the form of a development committee with Peggy Birkmeyer and Dana Jennings that bring a lot of experience to the League. I look to Peggy and Dana as my tour guides on this fundraising journey, and we have a lot of fun together. Next slide. So why is fundraising important? All nonprofits need to fundraise in order to pay not only for their programs, but also for operational expenses such as rent. However, all nonprofits also fundraise for other important reasons, and here are a few. The first is to raise awareness of our organization. As an example of this, how issues around voting in the fall in a COVID-19 environment, this was one of the fundraisers we did with our Giving Tuesday Now campaign, and we needed to promote voting and how to promote voting and how to vote safely. By doing that, we raised awareness of the League, and this in turn serves to increase our membership and assist us in carrying out our mission. Next, fundraising creates excitement about our organization because we like to make it fun. And if you remember in our Facebook post, we used Chloe the talking dog, who is here with me now. And we do challenges, and we used pictures of all of us at the General Assembly smiling. And so those are ways that we create excitement for fundraising. And who doesn't want to be fun, or who doesn't want to be part of an organization that's seen as exciting and fun? Lastly, when we are successful in fundraising, we can achieve goals related to our mission, such as increased traffic to vote411.org to educated voters, reaching voters through postcarding parties, and increased attendance in our educational timely topics. Next slide, Diana, please. You can see on this slide how our budget comes from successful fundraising, and that fundraising is what keeps our organization running. The first number is what we raised from 2 successful Giving Tuesday campaigns during the past year. Last fall's end of the year Giving Tuesday, and the most recent COVID-19 fundraiser Giving Tuesday Now. So that total are both of those fundraisers. The second total shows donations that were received during the annual membership due statement that comes out in June of each year, where there's space to make additional donations. Those are those totals. And then last, you can see how Women's Equality Day is our largest and most important fundraising event. Again, it's the support of our member donors who recognize the importance of fundraising to the League. Next slide. And I'll end on an uplifting note. Right now, we are all feeling a little stressed with the uncertain COVID-19 environment we're living in, and maybe at times a little melancholy that we're not spending time with each other in person. However, if we can keep calm and fundraise on, we can continue our mission of defending democracy and empowering voters. We can work together to achieve goals, raise awareness, and have fun. And I'll end with a reminder that our largest fundraiser, Women's Equality Day, is fast approaching, and we hope you will continue to support Women's Equality Day through sponsorships. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Cheryl. We have about 10 more minutes in the session, so maybe one question. Do you see any questions, Sheila, before we turn to member feedback?
I am not seeing any questions at this point.
Great. Well, Cheryl, thank you and your team. It is a small team that is doing a lot of fundraising, and as the members saw, that is about half of our budget. And it's an important part of what we do, and the more funds we raise, the more we're able to actually do in terms of pushing our mission forward. All right, at this point, we're going to turn to feedback, and we do want more feedback from you all. I'm going to ask you 3 questions that I told you about earlier on, and what I'm going to want you to do, for those of you who are on your computer, I'd like you to type your answer in the chat box. And again, if you're joining us a little late and you're not sure where that is, if you're on your computer, just slide your mouse toward the bottom of your Zoom screen and towards the center bottom of the Zoom screen, and you should see a menu slide up. And one of those options will say chat. Simply click on that and the box will open up and you'll be able to type in any questions or comments that you have. So our first question, and again, these are really important questions to us, and we'll be saving all of your comments from this session into a separate document, which is why we're asking them in order. The first question we would like to have feedback on are, what are the issues that are most important to you right now? So if you'll just start typing in, we'll take about a minute for you all to put that in, but the issues that were important to you a year ago may be different now. The issues that are important to you may have changed over the last couple of months, and we would just like to get a sense of what are some of the things that you are most concerned about as it relates to many of the issues that the League is working on, or even if it's issues we're not working on. And Sheila, would you just call out some of the ones that you're seeing? We can't call them all out, but as you see them, what are you seeing?
The November election is coming up a lot. Environment, healthcare, affordable housing, voter registration, voting and voter rights, healthcare, immigrant rights, the environment, being able to vote by mail. By far, the November election is getting the most. Vote for 1-1, voting in the midst of the pandemic, the Raleigh Affordable Housing Bond, voter education to ensure good turnout, voter access, preparing for redistricting next year, Medicaid expansion, women's equality, ERA, the census.
Great. That's great feedback. Now, the good news is, bad news is we do have a lot of issues that we need to be concerned about. Many of them are issues that we were already working on. So again, the League is very well positioned to take up these issues because we're already on them. The Voter Services Committee under Marion Lewin's leadership is very much on top of voting related issues. And I encourage you to participate in, the Voter Services Committee and upcoming events that we will likely have to update you all. I saw redistricting. I will tell you that next month we're going to be doing a webinar for those of you who don't know the details of it, and we know that it's going to be in the news even more over the next few months. Will be an opportunity to get updated, and then we'll have a follow-up in July on redistricting, on transparency and best practices in redistricting. So a couple coming up, and we are doing some exciting things that we can't announce at the moment on redistricting. At this point, I'm going to move to the next question. As a League, what do you think LWV-Wake could do better? And let me be clear, I'm not asking you what the National League can do better or what the State League can do better. Those are things we don't really have a whole lot of control over. But what do you think your local league here in Wake could work on doing better? And Sheila, as some of those answers come out, if you would just read out some of the highlights.
Reaching out to diverse communities, engaging and attracting younger members, having more meetings during non-business hours, diversity in younger members, recruiting more members from outside of Raleigh. Diversity in younger members are the big ones here. Awareness to high school students, providing mentors for new members, flexibility in times of meetings, enticing members to become more actively involved, action alerts prominently labeled, people not automatically hitting reply all on committee emails.
That would be nice.
That would be nice. Highlighting one-off opportunities for engagement for people who can't commit to ongoing committee work. That's something I as a committee chair, I know I need to work on.
Yeah, this is great feedback. And I have to say, we are working on several of those things, particularly as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and attracting more younger members to the league, and talking about a more varied schedule, particularly for people who work during the day, so we can offer more evening events, and that may actually be easier now in a virtual environment. So some of our events coming up, the times are more varied, so I'm hoping that that will improve. Let's turn to our third question. We appreciate constructive feedback. That's the only way we get better, but we assume that since you're here, you really do like the league, and we would like to know, what do you love about your league? And Sheila, when those start coming in, if you'll just mention some highlights.
Working with smart, fierce women and men on crucially important issues. The women who are members, passion, opportunities to make a difference. So many knowledgeable members, so much information everyone has. A sense of purpose, serious women making informed change. The members. November elections, retention of U.S. Postal Service, ERA. Oh, this is back to the issues that animate us. The educational opportunities, well-researched, thoughtful positions on issues, camaraderie, being with truly dedicated cadre of volunteers, mission, deep dive into important issues, incredible women that have such great knowledge, the commitment of the members, people always willing to answer questions, integrity, amazing work that's being done, exciting membership growth, excellent public presence, that the organization is respected in the community, sharing reading through lit groups. Some smart members provide me with hope.
Great.
Being inspired.
I'm going to go ahead because I'm looking at the time and I want to respect everyone's time on the webinar. But you guys can continue to type into the chat box. And if you'd like any other, to provide any other feedback or comments, please feel free to continue to use that chat box. As I said, we are going to be saving it into a text document so we can share it as, with our board members and with our committee chairs. I would like to just move on to our closing. Please save the date for the August 25th Virtual Women's Equality Day commemoration. We have some exciting plans for commemorating the centennial of the 19th Amendment. And of course, it's our major fundraiser of the year, as Cheryl indicated earlier. Please don't forget to vote on the bylaws, the budget, the nominees for the board, and for the nominating committee chairs if you haven't already done so. The voting for league members ends on May 31st, and thank you to those of you who have already voted. And finally, thank you for supporting the league. I hope to see some of you soon, even if it is just on Zoom. Take care, and we'll continue the important work that we do. Again, you're welcome to continue to put your comments in the chat box, even as people are signing off.